Time to bring in our panel this afternoon. Grahame Morris here with me in Canberra. Bruce Hawker in the Sky News Centre. Very good afternoon to both of you. Let's start with the election of Tony Smith as the new Speaker. Grahame, what do you think? Is he the right choice?
Yeah, he's a good man. He'll do the job well. I have a view, I'm not going to give him any advice, but I have a view that a Speaker should be seen and not heard. And there are a lot of news editors and whatnot have said to me in recent times that some of the better lines from the politicians, including the Prime Minister, you couldn't put to air because halfway through was the Speaker's voice, growling at the opposition, or growling at somebody. Yeah. It just seems to me that some of the better speakers, Question Time's all about communication, and if that communication is wrecked because there's another voice there, that's hard. So it just
get out of the way a bit more.
It just said Tony Smith doesn't need my advice, but if I was to try to pull the Parliament into order, I would do it after people have spoken, after a question, after the answer. Just pull everyone together. But you know, the best thing is to have a sense of humour and do it with a bit of wit and a bit of cleverness, and then both sides sort of calm down.
That's
a bit.
right. Look, Bruce, people are always going to question time. People are saying it's broken, it should go altogether. I mean, yes, it can be frustrating to watch depending on which side of politics you're on at any given time, but as an institution, it can be improved, but it's still important to have, and a lot of it does rest on how the Speaker handles it.
It is, and I think the early signs from Tony Smith are quite positive. He's given all the assurances that I think Labor would be encouraged by. He's going to have conferences with the Leader of the Opposition Business and the crossbenchers and the Leader of the Government. All those things are very, very positive. And I do think that Question Time is extremely important. It's a critical part of the whole parliamentary process of accountability, and an opposition should be able to make good use of Question Time as well if they're on to an issue.
And it sets us apart from the Americans too, doesn't it? Having a Prime Minister who is accountable, who does front up and does debate the issues face to face every day.
Indeed. And of course in the UK they'll have Prime Minister's Question Time, which will be set aside, you know, on particular days, where they'll just be questioning the PM on issues, and that's not a bad thing either. You can do all sorts of variations and combinations, but essentially having the government there, their front bench, accounting for what they've done to the Australian public and to the Parliament is critically important, and we shouldn't really mess around with it.
Now, what about Bronwyn Bishop? Obviously, Grahame, a lot of focus on her today. Difficult day, no doubt. Had to take a seat on the backbench for the first time in a long time, given she's been a front bencher as well recently. We heard Christopher Pyne also saying that she was unfairly felled over all of this. Do you think so? Do you think it was unfair in the end?
Well, look, there's a fair bit of hypocrisy in this, and I think you'd find if everyone in the Parliament had to live by the standards they've asked the Speaker, the former Speaker, I think 3/4 of the Parliament would have to stand down. Look, I think we will miss Bronwyn Bishop. Certainly, you know, I hope she still does all that party work and whatnot, because people will go and see.
Well, now she'll have more time and availability, I'm sure, to do the party work.
Maybe be a terrific move for the Liberal Party.
Would she seriously, though, be welcome, do you think, now at a party fundraiser?
Yes, everywhere, because the rank and file think that she was made a scapegoat. And she's always very, very good on the ground, really good.
All right, well, I'm sure the whole expenses row and focus on what our MPs spend of our money over the last few weeks has impacted on this latest poll. We can bring up some of the figures. The Newspoll, Bruce, today showing not much change overall, but a trend that is undeniable over some month or two now, where the two-party gap has now widened to 54 for Labor, 46 for the coalition. What do you put that down to? And, you know, should Labor be feeling good about that, or are you more wary?
Well, I don't think there'll be any early election, that's for sure. I think Abbott's got a lot of work ahead of him. And what do I think about it? I suspect that what we're seeing now is the Australian public really starting to form the view that Tony Abbott just can't change his spots. You know, he got him into a lot of trouble over the whole Prince Philip thing, and now he's got him back into trouble again by standing beside Bronwyn Bishop for far too long, and looking out of touch with Australia. Australian public standards and expectations. So I don't think this is good news for them at all. Oh, it's not good news for Tony Abbott. I mean, I think he asked for about 6 months to clean up his act and get things back in order. And now the Newspoll is in exactly the same position as it was back in February when he had to go before his party room and sort out those issues.
Well, it is interesting. It is interesting, Graham. Maybe we can bring that graphic back up. But you can see there where the problems were in February with the leadership spill. Things improved for the government after the budget, and certainly in the lead up to the budget. And it was all about fixing the issues that MPs were worried about. There was changes in his leadership style. You can see there that during May, things did improve, and then come sort of June, and now in July, we're into August now. Of course, things have blown out a bit. What do you make of that, Graham?
Well, each time the government sort of has a good month, they then have 2 bad months. Look, it is worrying, and I don't care about polls doing that. Yeah. The trend is stuck, and we've still got geniuses in this morning's papers still saying, there could be a possibility of a double dissolution. Yeah, and Mount Kosciuszko might erupt tomorrow too. Yeah. But we are 12 months away from the start of election season, and the damn polls are stuck. And if the polls were anywhere near right, an election was held last Saturday, the new Speaker would have the most marginal seat in the country.
Can I say this? Sorry, go on.
Look, everyone is worried about it. I think the first thing is that the government stops making mistakes, and you think, the government has a very, very ordinary last month, so it's not surprising that they didn't jump.
So I think we're getting into a difficult period for the government, because time is starting to move. We're about 12 months away, really, from the next election. And it's around now that attitudes in the electorate will probably be really hardening. I just don't see them changing their attitude towards Tony Abbott at all. And they think, well, can we beat Shorten or not with Abbott? That's the sort of questions that's going to be going on. All the pretenders to the throne have all behaved impeccably in the last few months. They haven't done anything to offend the party room. So I just wouldn't be surprised if the rumblings don't start again soon.
I guess on the other side of the fence, you can suggest that. But Graham, what do you think? I mean, I know that poll today isn't good. You can never rule out something happening if panic does set in. But I certainly don't detect any serious talk.
No, there's not. No, there's not, and there should be. But if they all look at the person next to them and say, hey, you're going to be the next deal who make a mistake, and please don't, then that'd be a good start. And then you get back to a level playing field, and then you can have a look at the opposition and start pulling them to bits.
And the gay marriage debate over the next fortnight, that's not going to be an easy one to manage for the Prime Minister either.
No.
Well, look, it's not easy, but if anyone has a look at the process, it's not going to be voted on in the Parliament. Even tomorrow's party room, there's no process for it, but somebody may get up and say, look, what about the gay marriage thing? And for every 3 people that speak in favour, there'll be 12 against.
Well.
And somebody can introduce a private member's bill, but it's not going to be voted on in the Parliament.
I think this is going to be a problem for
Bruce. I mean, we're just looking at some of the, the 2 campaigns on this. This is Canberra Airport that was, presented this way for MPs arriving in town. We've also seen full-page ads in the Australian newspaper and elsewhere today arguing the opposite, arguing against gay marriage. What do you think about this? If no conscience vote is allowed in the Liberal Party room, where does it leave things?
Well, I think once again it just demonstrates that the Prime Minister is asserting his position over the Australian public and probably over the Australian Parliament in a way that's going to upset a lot of people. I mean, public opinion has really, really consolidated in this area now. People are for gay marriage. They just think it's about time it happened. And once again, he looks like he's out of step with public opinion. He's out of touch. I don't think it's a good look for him at all. And if I were them, I'd be trying to move past this issue sooner rather than later. But for the reasons that Graham identified before, it's just more noise, more white noise that the Prime Minister has to deal with that doesn't really endear him to the Australian electorate.
Well, no doubt we'll be talking more about this in the week or two ahead. We've got to wrap it up there, Bruce. Hawker, Grahame Morris, good to talk to the two of you. Thank you very much for that. Take a quick break, back with more on PM Agenda.